Good evening. So welcome back to the basic bookkeeping class. If you haven't done so already, please log into your QuickBooks. So we'll be ready to go. Should get something like that. Is everybody able to log in okay? Yeah, right on. That's the way it's supposed to work. Yeah, hopefully so. Like I was saying yesterday, the computer part is pretty easy now. It's the human element where there's always exceptions to the rules. That's what makes it more complicated. So while we're waiting a couple minutes to get started, there is, if you're interested, a QuickBooks certification program. It's sponsored by Intuit. So they will allow you to take an exam. And if you pass the exam, they get a certificate from QuickBooks, tells you, your stuff, and you can use that. Put it on the wall, cover up like smash spiders, stuff like that. But it's also helpful if you're going for a job. Hello. Because it's an independent exam. Now, up till now, last year they allowed us to offer it to students, no charge. However, we are undergoing some administration changes at Patterson, so a new person's coming in. So I think it'll be the same, but I'll let you know. But either way, it's if you want to take it on your own, you always can. It's like about $80, and the way it works is it's not just a question. an answer thing. It's a do thing. So you actually do it on the computer, and it will say, you know, write a purchase order for $30 for John Smith. Okay, you do it. And then you click done, and it will evaluate how you did. It won't tell you how you did till the very end, but you have to get a 75% or better to pass. So that's, you know, it's whenever you can actually, if you can find a place that will do the testing, then they can do it anytime. So it's not like, you know, a certain period of the year. It's just there are a few fewer places now, but we can do it here and we can set it up, and we invite everybody who's taken the classes to come back and do it. And, you know, it doesn't cost you anything, so that's kind of good. And I don't want to say it's easy, but it's not overly complex. And, you know, it's just like QuickBooks. It's pretty straightforward. So they don't make very complicated questions. And it's basically, do you know screens? And then can they tell you, I don't think there is a question about the journal, but they might say, make a journal entry. So they don't tell you how to do that. You have to know that, and then you just go do it. So it is timed, and the way it's structured, if you get stuck on a question, you can say pass for now and come back later. So if you have time at the end, you can go back to the questions. And that's a good idea. I suggest that, because sometimes, you know, it's like, I'm not quite getting it. But after you do some other questions, it gives you hints about maybe what that question was about. And then you come back. And that way you're not spending all your time trying to get through one question that you know, could slow you down and help you or hurt you on the final end run. So it's also designed that you can't, well, you're not supposed to be able to cheat, because the test is different every time people take it. So they have this large pool of questions, and it randomly selects them. So sometimes the test can be a little harder. You know, they'll ask a little harder questions. Sometimes a lot easier, just a random luck of the draw. And it's never the same twice. Sometimes you'll see a familiar question if you take it more than once, but it's not exactly the same. So yeah, that's the good and bad of it. It is, like I said, it's not too hard, but it, you know, it's a test anxiety. We notice that when people have to sit down and take a test, it gets, you know, all jittery. So you know, the good news is you can take it more than once. You can take as many times as you want, and that way no one test hurts you. And the first one, it's just gonna get familiar with how it works. So it's called the Intuit Certification Exam, and the person who's coming on board is coming on board next month. So we'll see if they want to keep doing that. But I think so. It's a good idea, yes. Yeah, because it includes some payroll things, and we go into that. That's where the fun begins. Right. So in today's email, I started adding what things we've done. There's always bookkeeping things going on in the news. As I mentioned, they're always changing things. And so here's a couple of them. Forbes had an article today about the 3 accounting methods you need to know in 2023. And one of the things it mentions is accrual and cash basis accounting. So when you're doing bookkeeping, you're either on an accrual basis or cash basis. QuickBooks automatically puts you on accrual. So what that means is when you send an invoice out, say to Dan or to me, I bought something from your store. I haven't paid you yet, but you're billing me, right? The moment you bill me, they consider that to be income for your company. Now, if I stiff you and I don't pay you, what happens? Well, then you miscalculated that. So you have to go and write it off. But the accrual method says as soon as you have generated that paperwork for the sale, that's income, whether you get it or not. Now, later on, it is possible to revise those things. And the reason you need to do that is depending on which agency you work with, we work with a couple of them. The city, for their tax licensing, will do it based on your income, and they always demand the accrual method. Why? It's more money, right? So the cash basis, if you do a cash basis, you actually have to convert it for your application. When you join an organization, like we went through accreditation, they did it on the accrual method. They say you pay your fees to us based on how much you've earned. How much do you know you've earned? Well, let's take a look at your books, and anything that you're waiting to get paid for, even though you know haven't got it in the bank yet, that counts, and we'll count that. We'll take a percentage of that too. So That's why, again, you want to be really good with your customers and make sure they pay, because sometimes you're paying on their behalf. They don't know it, but you're assuming that income's coming in. So anyway, that's one. And in the advanced class, we get a little more into that. Yeah. I just pulled up the email. And then, speaking of payroll, there's another little article about the FTC is going to try to ban non-compete clauses. And non-compete clause is when you join a company, you're an employee, they'll have you sign this form, and it says, if you quit or if they fire you, you can't compete against them. And it really started with a lot of tech places, right? And that makes sense. If you started at Google when they were first starting out, you learned everything there is to know about Google, and then you quit to start your own company and call it, Google Plus or, Moogle or something else to try to compete with them. Well, that's not really very fair because they basically trained you and you know all the insides and outs. So it used to be that those are the types of jobs that would have these non-compete clauses, and usually get paid more for that. There'd be some compensation, so it's a higher paying job. What's happened is a lot of employers have said, hey, that's great, because I don't want my employees telling my competitors what I'm doing. So I'm going to do that for all my employees. Well, it's gotten kind of abused, and basically means you can't get a job, but you basically can't get a job in the same industry without scrutiny from your last employer. If the company you join starts making a lot of money, they might come after you and say, look, you signed this, so you are in violation of our agreement, and so now we're going to ask for penalties from you. So the FTC is trying to stop that. So just little bits of information about payroll, bookkeeping, even QuickBooks. So if you look at that in the email, it's right under the link for QuickBooks. And that'll go out after each class. Speaking of QuickBooks, let's get back into QuickBooks here. So when I started up, I still got a checklist to go through. So if you are setting up a company from scratch, there are these links here that you can go through. And if you want to get paid online, so you can set that up too. So you can still do it. There's always opportunities to go back and either reevaluate things you've done or try to fix things that you don't have done. So we are going to do that manually. You can always take a look at these by dropping those arrows and opening them. So that's one way to make sure you've got all your I's dotted and T's crossed. But if you scroll down, here's our general workspace, and you'll see all these buttons and those little icons. So once again, that's what makes QuickBooks so easy. So you can see even, like with manage your customers, if you made mistakes or typos. If you haven't, but you want to create an estimate for the customer, you can do that. Then you see estimate the invoices, and then you can receive the payments from the invoice. And so it shows you the whole flow of working with the customer. On the left side, of course, we have these menus. And what they've done is they've tried to group things together based on activities. So you'll see get paid and pay. If I click on that, I get this, it's not a drop-down list, a drop sideways list about getting paid, customers, estimates, invoices. So same as those links. So I was telling you that example the other day about somebody who just wants to use these instead of those buttons. But each one will get you to the same spot. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to click on the business overview. And on the left side, you will see that we have a report for cash flow. We also have our general reports area, and then planner and projects. So those are some extra things that QuickBooks will do. Cash flow basically shows how much money is coming in and how much money is going out at any one time. And that can be really handy. It'll also track it over time. And then once you get it like a year's worth of data in, you can start seeing trends. For a lot of companies, right before Christmas, all their sales go up. And then afterwards, when everybody's broke, it goes back down and levels off. So that's one of the things you could do with your cash flow reports. I want to take a look at this report, though. So I'm going to click on reports. There's a special one. Right now, of course, we don't have any data in here. Here it comes. So this is a list of all the built-in reports QuickBooks offers you. And these are great, partially because you don't have to reconstruct them, but also because they are pretty standard. So you'll notice we have up here, like the top three. So accounts receivable aging summary tells you how many people owe you money, how long they've owed you that money, and who's due to pay when. You can see the balance sheet, the profit loss. Those will tell you the health of your business, financial health of your business. So you'll see they've got stars here because they are favorited automatically. They actually exist also down here, down below. You'll see the business overview reports. And here is the balance sheet. And then here's the profit loss. You'll also notice that some reports, they're in there twice, because sometimes they'll say like balance sheet and balance sheet summary. The balance sheet gives you a lot more detail. The balance sheet summary is just the basics, almost literally the bottom line for each of your categories. If you ever go to your accountant and you want to try to get a loan with a bank, they're going to want to see your profit and loss report. And there it is, right here. So you just run these reports, print them out, take them to the bank, and they'll make them happy. As you scroll down, you'll see here's who owes you. And again, they've tried to classify these in friendly language. Like, okay, I want to know who owes me. Here's everything to deal with customers, basically. As I scroll down, you'll see there's more customers. This is with sales and customers. And this will also include trends of customers. So you can see, again, who is spending most money at your store. There's you can actually chart it out over time. So you could see if Dan's in here, Dan spent a lot of money here. Well, no, he didn't. Oh, now he did. No, he didn't. And then you can compare them year to year and you pick up these trends. And then you start sending Dan little notices. Hey, I noticed that last year you bought socks. How are your socks holding up? If you need more, we'll give you a BOGO, buy one, get one free. Of course, I'm thinking about socks right about now. How'd you know? That's amazing. And then I come by twice as many socks this time. But one thing I want to take a look at is the customer contact list. So this is what we did yesterday. It's all of our customers. And you'll see here, it's got the whole layout of everything we put in there. You can also change this report and customize it if you want to add some fields that aren't in there. So you'll see there's phone numbers, email. It doesn't say website. If you want to have website, you can go in and doctor it and add it. You can save that layout for that report to QuickBooks and customize them that way. The one thing you can't do is change the ones they've made. So you can it looks like you're making modifications, but when you save it, you have to give it a new name because this will always be the customer report. Okay, I'm going to go back to my reports. Oops. And by the way, you can use the back button on some things, like when you're editing. Let's say I was putting in a new customer and I click save and I say, oh, I forgot to do something. Instead of edit, I say I'm going to go back and use the back button. That won't work. But if you're flipping through like reports, you can use the back button on your browser. So up here in the left-hand corner. So when I was down here, oops, went too far. My customer contact list. I can click back. Takes me there. That's a shortcut. Another shortcut, I told you I learned computers using the keyboard shortcuts because that's all we had. We didn't have a mouse. I always tell people, you guys learned with a mouse, you're lucky. Back in my day, we didn't have a mouse. We thought we were lucky. So there is a keyboard equivalent on the browser to back. It's Alt and the left spacebar or left arrow. So I hold down the Alt key, the left arrow key on the keyboard, and see how it jumped back. The reason I still like those is if I have my hands on the keyboard, I don't like to stop, grab the mouse, move the mouse, and bring my hand back if I can quickly just use a keyboard shortcut. So either way works, and we're back to our reports list. Let's go down. You'll see there's what you owe. So there's 1099 reports. It'll show you unpaid bills, the vendor balance details if they owe you money. And as I scroll down, you'll see again, here's more reports based on your vendors. So this way you can see what you're buying from the vendors, trends over time. As we scroll down, there's employees. We haven't set anything up, but you could take a look at your different employees and even like the summary of how much you paid them over time. Because I don't know if you know this, if you own a business, one of the most expensive things you can do is get an employee. So if you're hiring an employee, you better really need them because that is very expensive. And as you'll notice, and it's happening right now, Microsoft just did it, when crunch time comes and the company's in trouble, it's the first thing they do, announce a layoff. Yeah, so Microsoft just had a big layoff. And usually it's a last hired, first fired kind of thing. But it saves them money. It's instantly saving them money. And all the stockholders go, oh yeah, yay, they're saving money. Because they went to the employees. They didn't say, we're cutting out the coffee in the coffee room, you know? That's nothing. No, but we cut a bunch of employees. Ooh, okay, that's impressive. So it's unfortunate, but that's what happens. And then as you scroll down, there's more detailed accounting activities, including the general journal. You can see all the transactions. There's a trial balance report, profit loss, and things like that. I'm going to go back to my vendors. I'll show you one of my favorite things about QuickBooks.
So once you set everything up, just the push of a button will give you next month and the following month, just everything that.
Yeah. What they're well, we don't have any, but let's take a look at a sales report. Sales by customer summary. Of course, I got nothing, right? No sales yet. But you'll notice over here, it does say the dates. And the dates are up here. And then they use a friendly term, like instead of January 1st, 2023 through January 25th, 2020, it's this month to date. So I can click this list here, and you'll see a lot more friendly terms. So this month, this week to date. And then it will change my report to do this week to date. Not supposed to. So you can change any start date, any end date. You can change how it sorts. You'll notice right here, oops, I have to draw it this way. Accrual method, told you it defaulted to it. So it's already set up on the accrual method. And then on the report, you will always notice it gives you a summary here. So it tells you exactly what date you're looking at. And so if you just want to look at a certain period, you can change the dates at the top to anything you like, you know, any particular day. The other thing you can do is you can print it, of course. But up here, you have an option, and we'll go through this, to export to Excel. So QuickBooks has, as I said, you can make modifications to these reports, and it's pretty extensive, but it doesn't have all the extra little bells and whistles that Excel has. With Excel, you can run graphic charts, and let's say you had to do a sales report for like a board meeting or something. So you can show the numbers. That's kind of dry. Or if you know Excel, export it to Excel, take those numbers and just, again, with a click, convert it into a chart. And all of a sudden, you know, you get the, like you see all the time in the cartoons, with the up arrows or the down arrows, losses, profit, all that kind of stuff. You can add colors, you can add pictures, you can add logos. It's amazing just how creative you want to be and basically how much time you have. So after you make the change of the dates, you have to click Run Report. And there's my this week to date, January 22nd to the 25th.
So when you have invoices, but I mean, you don't have to file them away or whatever. You just can store them in the QuickBooks.
Oh, here we go. Yes, you can. Like I said, when I was learning, they were talking about how we're converting to the paperless office and PDF files. You never need to print anything out again. And when you send emails, you know, it's just all stored on the computer. It is all stored on here. you can actually generate PDF documents off your invoices and save them on the computer. But you know what happens? So, like I said, this was in the 80s. They were talking about paperless office, and paper companies don't invest in paper companies. They're on the way out. It's going to be like, what do they say, like horse whips for buggies? Like, who needs those anymore, right? The opposite happened. Why? Nobody trusts computers. They say, well, I know I could store it, but I like to have it on my hand, so I'm going to print it. And you'll even see emails when people say, please think about the environment before printing this email. But if it's important, you want to have a paper copy. So paper companies are doing better than ever before, because people just say, well, I know, but I want to keep a backup. And there's nothing like paper backup. So the answer is yes, you can. The result is a lot of people will keep a lot of stuff still on paper. It just kind of depends on your comfortability with that. As I mentioned, you can run backups on here, so you're pretty safe. And I haven't heard anybody who ever lost anything significant through the online QuickBooks. But they don't advertise that either, so maybe I wouldn't hear about it. When I worked for the county, we had tape backup, and it basically backed up the whole computer system. Now, we were doing student files, basically, so we'd get hundreds of student reports on what their progress was. So those had to be processed and filed and put in the filing cabinet by the end of that day. Otherwise, the next day, it would just make the stack higher, right? So it was always get this done, put it in there, then make a backup. And since I was the last one to leave, it was my job to push the button for backup. So then, in case, I guess, I came to work drunk, smashed my car into the office and blew up the backups that we had, the backup that I had in my pocket, which would wipe everything out. Every week, I had to take a tape down to the vault at the county, and they would store it, and I'd take the old one out, put the new one in. And that way, if something like that disaster ever happened, there would be at least up to the last week. But I was saying, hate to think of all that to be negative, but if we ever had something like that, I mean, these file cabinets, it was a wall full of file cabinets. And what they did is they filed them alphabetically. So by student, which is, if you wanted to look it up, that makes sense, right? However, each one as they came in got a date stamp. So if we lost a day's worth of work, so no problem, just one day, right? Except this wall full of file cabinets, you'd have to go through every single one and look for the date stamp, because they weren't categorized by date stamp, they're categorized by name. You'd never finish. And luckily, it never happened. But anyway, with backups, it's very handy. So on the desktop version, you can actually run a backup to a thumb drive. And then, let's say like the rains really hit and flood your office and you lose your computer, you just go buy a new computer, plug it in and go. With this version online, if something happened to your computer, you just buy a new one, go online, and you're ready to go. Because when they store things, they store it and they automatically make backups as they go along. So it's called redundancy. So you're pretty safe. But people still like paper. And oh yeah. See, that's the thing. On paper, you can only file them one way. Either file them alphabetically, or we could have switched to file them by date. But then say, Johnny Jones had a problem, or there's a report. Let's go find that one. What date did that come in? It would be a little harder to find. Easier to file though, but harder to find. So it just kind of depends. It depends what the company's rule is too. And sometimes you don't get to make that decision. But I always tell people, because we do have students who go look for jobs. When you're at a job, if you get a great email that says, hey, you did a good job on this, thanks a lot, I would print it out and I'd keep a folder and just slip it in there. Why paper? Because again, when you do your performance evaluation, you're going to walk in, and you can't walk in with a laptop, right? So you probably just bring this file and bring it with you. And that when they start talking about the year, hey, you did a good job. Yeah, I noticed, did you see this I got from the director? So before they, because sometimes it's easy to remember all the negative things, all the bad things that happen, and hard to remember the good things. So having a file there on paper where you could just hand it over to them and they can read it is much more convenient. So paper still rules. Anyway, let me go into my vendors list, and I want to take a look at my vendors. So it's going to be a lot like my customers list, but it's now the opposite. It's the vendors. So you'll see vendor contact list. And by the way, next to each list, as you hover over it, you see a little question mark. If you're not sure about these reports, click on the question mark and it tells you its purpose. So name, company, email address of vendors. If you're really interested in pursuing bookkeeping or learning more about it, this is the place to be. Just go through all these reports, especially if you have dummy data in here, because then you can actually see how it works. And that's one of the things we're trying to do here is getting you familiar with how it was set up. So then you recognize like customer names and things like that as you go through. But this is where the rubber meets the road. And also, when you have people who are doing financial shenanigans, that's also where you find out. It's through the reports, because the reports have to balance. Remember, we have the balance sheet in there. I mean, they have to come out. If they don't, something's wrong. And that's what happens. And it's really hard to fake all of that at once. But what happens is you do get very charismatic people like Sam Bankman-Fried, who basically said, oh, you don't need to see the reports. Let me tell you what we're going to do with this money. We're going to give it out to people who really need it. Don't you care about people who need it? And then, you just change the subject and people said, that sounds wonderful. I'm glad somebody's doing it. And forgetting, hey, I never saw that balance sheet. So that's the problem, is sometimes they try to get around that. All right, so here's my vendor contact list. I'm going to modify this one real quick so I can see the terms, because it doesn't show terms. So in the upper right-hand corner, you have this little gear. And I click on it, and you'll see all the different columns I can add and remove. If it has a check mark, it means it's going to show. No check mark means it's not. So you'll see terms is not. So I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to reorder columns. You can also change how it displays. And again, you can see all this stuff down here. But I'm going to leave it as is and run report. All right, remember I said our vendors are supposed to be all net terms net 30? Well, I made a typo here. I have one due on receipt. So here's what I like about QuickBooks. In other programs, the reports aren't active. This is called the quick zoom. By clicking on this due on receipt, it'll take me right to it. I can make the change instead of having to exit out, go to the customers, pull up the customer, and do that. So I'm going to edit her right now. And here's the terms. Net 30. Save. Done. I can go back to my report. And now it's updated. Just that easy. So that's what I liked about it. There are times where you see little things like that need to be fixed. It's easy to get in and fix them instead of having to exit out and go back through the main system.
How do you go back to the report?
To the report, I did the back arrow back up here, or I did the Alt left arrow key. But I could have also gone to reports and then run the report again. So you can do it that way. There's nothing wrong with that. It just takes a little longer.
When do you get terms?
When you have to scroll down. Yeah, okay. So if you're in the report, you have to click on the little cog up here. And then it only shows you some of them. So I click show more. There's everything. And see terms down here in second column. Now here's a trade-off. On paper, your paper is only so wide, even if you turn it sideways to landscape. So when you'd run those reports, you always have to consider that. If you're doing it, though, you can actually convert this to PDF. The PDF can be that size, or you can modify your page size and be infinity, which means it'll just run on and on. And then you don't have to worry so much about columns and things. And then you can include things like notes, because notes tends to be pretty big. Yeah, so there's the terms, and then down below. So we'll get into modifying these reports later. I can run the report, and here it comes. But I'm not going to save it now. So next time I run this report, terms is not going to be there because I'm not saving it. Okay, let's go back now. And let's go to get paid and pay. So I'm highlighting on vendors, but you'll see here, yours might come up with customers first because I was editing one. But either way, what we're going to look for is products and services. So here's the thing about products and services. These are items that we're going to sell in our store. This link will show up in multiple places because it applies to customers who buy our stuff. It applies to vendors from whom we buy the stuff. And then there's a couple of lists that it shows up just as the general list. So it will be in different areas, and that's for convenience. But just keep in mind, they're all the same. Doesn't matter what you click on. I'm going to click on my products and services. Speaking of customization, you'll notice here you always get these 3 dots. What you can do is bookmark this and then just run QuickBooks off your bookmarks. If there's like 3 or 4 things you're always doing, you can set this up and then they're all right there. You can also customize this menu with certain things too. Don't do it now. Okay, try going down here, clear that out. Yeah, try that. See if that will show. Mark, okay. And then the other thing is, so you don't have a get paid and pay?
Yes.
Okay, and then when you click on it, okay. Like I said, even if it did a different layout, it's always there because it kind of has to be.
It's kind of like you just have to do it. Like
The first time,
yeah.
as you use it,
Yeah.
yeah. Now, I will say, in the desktop version, they did my favorite thing. They actually assigned keyboard shortcuts. So, like the chart of accounts, it's Control A. On this version, they didn't. But I like that because instead of having to remember what menu the chart of accounts is under, I can just remember, it says Control A, and it pops right up. The other thing too is depending on your activities, you may decide you want to use the products and services from the get paid and pay, or from the other areas that you can find it. So let's go to products and services. So even though we told QuickBooks we're going to do products only, it always says products and services because it can always be included. The first time this pops up, we get this add a product or service. Oh, wait, before we do that, there's one little small detail down here. There's a little tip. Once again, if you have a products and services list on Excel, then you can import it from here. Or you'll also see this other option, CSV. So Excel, Microsoft, owns the world, so they're everywhere. But not too long ago, they weren't. So if you wanted to compete with Microsoft, you couldn't put anything in Excel because they'd come after you. So what you could do is create what's called a comma-separated values. So in the case of our customers, a comma-separated value CSV file would have, like for my name, Dan, Gara, 1212 Main Street, So you can see it's separating each field by a comma. And then everybody below me should be in the same pattern. As long as that pattern's the same, the computer can pick it up. You just can't use a comma. So I can't be Main Street, comma, space 123. No commas allowed, because that comma would be a separator. So that was another way to do it, and still is, that you could see here, but now everybody puts in Excel. Even if you have a comma separated value file, you can import it into Excel, which does accept it too. And then it got that grid, and that's really helpful. So you clean it all up in case something's missing. Then you import it in here, and your job is done. But this is what I mentioned, a lot of manufacturers or warehouses will do this when they have a new product line or a monthly update, like if you're in a grocery store. They will send you this file, and then you can tweak it if you need to, and just import it instead of having to key in all their new products. And they are making all kinds of new products. They had Fruity Pebbles pancake syrup. And I was like, what? But I want to try it. But I want to buy the whole bottle because I know that's got to be awful. But okay, so that's a new product. Some wizard came up with that, and now it's in the store, and the store has to account for that, right? How did they put it in as a new product? Well, they probably got a batch on the computer that just updated their computers, and it's all ready to go. If anybody tries it, let me know. Okay, so when I click on add a product or service, the first thing it's going to ask me is what kind of product is this? So the first two options are inventory and non-inventory, right? What this means is, do you want QuickBooks to keep track of how many you have on hand? So as you order them and sell them, QuickBooks will keep track. If you don't, you can do non-inventory part. So like some things, yeah.
Mine isn't highlighted, and it has my inventory in the very bottom, but it's not in blue. It's you have to turn it on. Just turn it on the inventory.
Let me see.
Now it says bundle.
Okay. Yeah. Now we're going to use inventory parts. So that's the thing, is you can turn this off in the settings if you want to. And sometimes it doesn't matter. There's some products, it doesn't matter how many you have, you're just going to sell them. So I think they use an example. Again, nuts and bolts. So you're just going to buy a huge package, 10,000, and you're not going to keep track of, well, somebody used 2 today, right? That's terrible. So that would be a non-inventory part. But for our purposes, we want QuickBooks to track our products. So we know how many we have on hand. And the other thing is how many are on order, because once we place the order, it takes a while to get them. And that can really help us if we have a customer run on a product or customer needs a product, we can tell when it's due if we're out of stock. The other thing down here, you also see service. Again, if you're providing a service, like if you're an attorney, providing legal services like that, you can do both. Let's say you become a really successful business owner, and now you go on the talking circuit, right? And they pay you fees to do a presentation. Well, that's a service, and you can track that through QuickBooks in addition to all your regular activity. And then bundles, it's kind of like we talked about before. If you're taking many things together and assembling them and putting it out and selling that finished product, that's a bundle. So that would be, I think I gave you the example of the joysticks, for the cheating joysticks with all the parts. But it could also be if you're making gift baskets. For a gift basket, I need a box of chocolates, I need a box of candy, I need the saran wrap, I need the basket. All that I'm buying separately, and I'm assembling them and calling that a bundle. And it could also be just like I mentioned the computers. So you're selling a laptop. In addition to the laptop, your bundle includes maybe some software, so a software package, maybe an external mouse, a power supply, and you call this the A+ bundle, right? So that would be by bundle too. For today, let's pick inventory. So all of our parts are going to be inventory parts. If I clicked wrong, you'll see this change type at the top. So you can always go back and fix it. So everybody make up your 5 products. If not, you could do it on the fly. So my first product, I'm going to call it a fountain pen. So the name is how it's going to show on your list. And this is important because it's going to be just like your customers, and it's just going to be like your vendors. It's the identifier. So if I had 3 fountain pens, I need to identify them separately. If, let's say, I track them by color, so I'd have red fountain pen, blue fountain pen, black fountain pen. So I'd have 3 items. For today, I'll just go fountain pen. Sometimes when you buy products, they may be different colors, but you don't get a choice. So when you sell them too, you're not going to track them by color. You're just going to have them out there. So if I had my fountain pens, I got a dozen fountain pens. Some are blue, some are black, some are red. I put them out. Sometimes people buy a red one, sometimes buy a black one. I'm not, because I can't buy them that way, I'll just leave them as in one individual item. Next, we have the SKU, SKU. That is usually the product ID number. And almost always now, it's the UPC code. So, when you buy a product like a box of cereal, on the back, you've got those little lines and numbers underneath. That is a nationally registered product. Every product gets a new number, and it's designed for scanners and things like that. So if you have that number, you can put it in here. You can also buy a scanner for your laptop, the little scan laser gun, and scan the SKUs. One of the things you can do in QuickBooks is turn it into a cash register. They do have software for that too. So all kinds of things, depending on what your needs are. But the SKU is essentially the number you use. Now you can create your own. You don't have to use the standard one, but most of the times it's very helpful to do that. I'll tell you another way it's very helpful nowadays is if you ever want to buy something, like you had something 10 years ago, right? And you got the box, and we came across this. It was like a cowboy kit or something. And I was curious, who's got it? Instead of typing in the name, if I say cowboy kit, it's going to bring real cowboy stuff, right? Toy cowboy stuff that works. That's way too general. But if I put in that stock keeping unit, that UPC code, it's called Universal Product Code. If I put that number in, search on Google, it'll pop up. And sure enough, a whole bunch of people on eBay had them, and they're exactly the same. And if you ever want to know, I shouldn't tell you this because this really hurts stores, but people do this all the time now. You go into a store, you go, ooh, I like that. I wonder if it's cheaper on Amazon. When you do the search for Amazon, put in the UPC code. It'll directly compare that product. Even if there's like 2 or 3 different versions, they'll usually have a different UPC code. And you can immediately say, oh, it's cheaper on Amazon. Oh, Walmart's got even cheaper. Oh, eBay. Wow, okay. So you can do a universal search for that, and every product is in there. I'm just going to skip it for now. You'll see we've got categories. You can categorize your products. We're not going to do that in the beginning class, but if you wanted to, if you had, say, food products as opposed to commercial household products, you could do that as well. That could be helpful too if you want to see which side of your business is making the most money and which is struggling. But we'll leave that blank. Next, you'll find the initial quantity on hand. So it does require this. We're going to say 0. What this is for is if you're converting over software programs. So you already have a bunch of stuff on your shelves, then you have a count, and you put it in here, and then the computer says, all right, you're starting off with 20 fountain pens, or whatever number you put in. And it's as of which date. And you remember yesterday when we were talking about customers and vendors, how much they already owe us for customers and how much we owe our vendors? Again, it would be a certain drop dead date. Like at this point, we're stopping the old system, and QuickBooks will now be our new system. You do the same here. You could say of which date. So we'll have 0 as of today. Whenever you're using dates, you always get this little drop-down calendar, which is nice. Just click on it. You don't have to type it all out. Next, you'll see reorder point. We're going to leave reorder point blank, but reorder point is helpful if you have a certain level you want your inventory to get down to before you get reminded, hey, it's time to reorder. So Squishmallows, is that what they're called? They're a big toy hit this Christmas. So if you're selling Squishmallows, right before Christmas, you definitely don't want to run out. But you know that when you place an order, it takes about 10 days for them to come in. So you figure, okay, I'm selling 1 a day. All right. So when I get down to 10, well, to be safe, I'll say 11. I'll put my reorder point as 11. So I have 100 now, and each day goes by. As soon as it hits 11, it pops up a reminder to you because your order point says, ding, we hit it. You might want to reorder now. So I say, okay, great. I do my purchase order. They come in, sure enough, I'm selling the last one out the door, and then another box comes in, and I'm good to go. That's called just-in-time ordering. And when it works, it's great. When it doesn't, it's a disaster. But it is helpful to have this on here because the computer can let you know when you're running low, especially if it's a popular product, because nothing makes customers matters when they come in for something and they can't find it. Oh, I'm sorry, we're sold out. Oh, I'm going somewhere else. Yeah. No, don't do that. Don't do that. We don't want to lose you. Now, yeah, the one who breaks that rule, actually they don't do it anymore, but they did for a long time, was Apple. Apple, they just had this thing about them. The more they made their customers wait, the more the customers wanted it, because they knew, oh, it must be that good. Well, it wasn't. They didn't gear up their manufacturing fast enough. That's really what happened. But it didn't matter. It's like, oh, we sold out. It's so popular, we sold out. Well, that's true. But everybody felt like, oh, well, when I get mine, I'm going to be blessed. I'm just so happy. Now I'm an Apple owner, right? And they did it again and again and again. And it was funny because all the other companies are saying, that never happens to us. When we run out, they say, well, go jump in the lake. I'm going to go buy somewhere else. I'm not waiting. My kid can't wait for Christmas. But that was Apple's thing. And there's a couple other companies that can do that. Yeah, it was. It's exactly what it was. It was the whole mystique of Apple. And I grew up with an Apple computer, so I like Apple. I used to like it. When they were the small, scrappy against the big IBM company, but of course now that they're the big monster, they don't have as much sympathy as they used to. But there are certain places that can do that. And do you remember Beanie Babies? Yeah, it was the same thing. The fewer they had, the more they could jack up the prices of the ones they did have, and they became a thing. And once it becomes a thing, yeah, you're going to be rich for a short term. But you have to plan it because it doesn't last long, right? And a lot of people lost a lot of money because they thought they were going to buy all these Beanie Babies and sell them, and the market fell when they finally caught up in the manufacturing, and then people moved on to something else. All of a sudden now those Beanie Babies are stuck there, and they're really worth $1 or $2, but they were hoping to get 1,000. Okay, so the next thing we have to deal with is inventory asset. Speaking of the worth of our products, this is an account that's going to keep track of how much value you have on hand. So when I buy my pens, they have a value, right? So the inventory asset will tell me, once I buy them, how much they're worth. Then when I sell them, the inventory asset will go down because I don't have them in my inventory anymore, right? I traded them for money. So now my pens are gone. So my inventory asset goes down. You'll see you can change this. You do have the option of going to the chart of accounts and adding a new account. However, for retail, you almost always use the inventory asset account. Be very rare not to. Okay, so next we have description. And we actually have this twice. Here's the description, and here's the description for purchasing information. The first one is how your customer is going to know this product. So when you send them a bill or an invoice, you want to describe how they know this. So I'm going to say, in my case, user-friendly fountain pen. Oh, no. Deluxe fountain pen. Okay. So whenever I send this out, that's what the customer is going to see. However, my vendor may not know what in the world are you, a deluxe, user-friendly deluxe fountain pen. It's just a pen to them. So they know it as something else. So down in purchasing information, I might have fountain pen. And if they have a different stock keeping unit or model number, I'll put that in here. Like that. So whenever I communicate with the vendor, they see this down here. When I communicate with a customer, they see this one up here. It's the same product, but it just has different descriptions. Now, it's not necessary to do that, but you can, or they can just be the same description. You just want the customers to recognize it when they see this description, and the vendors to recognize it when they see that description. Vendors can use the SKU numbers, the UPC codes, because that's a lot of their machines are set up to scan those. So you can just use that as well. Or you can copy and paste it if it's the exact same thing. Okay, so here comes the sales price. This is, again, what you're selling it for. And you'll see it says sales price /rate. If this were a service, it's, you know, how much do you charge, like per hour, per day, or whatever. But in our case, since it's a product, we're going to say how much we want to sell it for. So did you pick a number? Don't go crazy. Don't say $1 million, because we aren't used to looking at those large numbers, and that would get really confusing. So try to do your best guess. If you're not sure, you can always Google it. I could Google fountain pen. It'll tell me general price ranges. So mine are going to be $17.95. You don't have to put the dollar sign, but if you're using cents here, you do have to put the period. And
You're selling them for.
that's right. That's our sales price. That's what the customer is going to have to pay. Then, of course, everything's priced at 95 cents, $17.95, $10.95, or $10.99. So it doesn't hit that psychological threshold of, well, I don't want to buy something for $20, but I'll buy it for $19.99. You know, all sales is all about psychology. I was telling you with Apple. Yeah. So then you have to give it an account assignment. So it's going to come up sales of product income. As I use the drop-down list, you'll see there's some others. But again, for our retail business, it's almost always sales of product income. And it's going to keep track of your sales prices as the money comes in, how much you're earning on these, in my case, the pens. Down below, you'll see cost. This is how much you're buying it for, right? All of a sudden now, instead of deluxe, oh, they cost me $2 each. So that's a pretty big market, right? Percentage-wise. You did, yeah. I cheated this time. Just to mention that, again, there are times where you think, see, when I think, I'm always going to look for the cheapest price. Because I can do a direct comparison on my phone now. I want the cheapest price. Paying more doesn't make me think it's any better. But for a lot of people, well, if I'm paying more, it must be a better product. And sometimes it pays to jack up your prices that way. It just kind of depends. Now, like if you ever buy generic dish soap or sometimes, yeah, it's watered down or something, not as good. And you learn, and then you don't buy that one again. But pricing is a huge thing. So
When you're younger, you will buy, so things like that, but as you get older, it's like, oh, you will buy, highlights.
yeah, well, and like
You're frugal.
that's right. And I hate to say this because I know a lot of people love Starbucks. I completely don't understand Starbucks, but I'm not a coffee drinker, so maybe that's different. But they charge so much, and you can make it at home for so little. But that's the way it works. And the more Starbucks charges, the better. When they do their, was it unicorn? They had a unicorn drink. It was expensive, and I tasted it. It was like, it was all sugar. But the more they add, and you have the whip, the frap, and the more you do that, people really think they want to treat themselves. I don't understand that either. But that's the way they work. And they know more than I do because they have a lot of stores and I don't have any, right? So yeah, that's once it becomes a thing again. Oh, I drank at Starbucks. People don't go for a coffee anymore. My daughter-in-law does this. We're going for a Starbucks. Oh, you mean a coffee or a drink? No, a Starbucks.
It's not coffee, it's a nice coffee frappuccino.
Yes. And now her daughters all have their favorite tea. Yes. And they order it just right because that's what their mom does. And it's kind of a special day for them when they get to do that. And that, yeah, it is nice, but at the same time, it's like, it's just juice. Okay, I'll go buy you a bottle. Well, so we went to dinner over the weekend, and at the place they had those little machines where we put the quarters in, and my granddaughters are 4 and 10. Both of them loved putting the quarters in to see what they get. Oh, I hope I don't get this. Oh, I hope I get that. And they were just stickers and little rings and things. And I was thinking, I could have brought those over. I could find them somewhere, but it wouldn't be the same. They have to do it, take the risk, and then, oh, that's not what I wanted. Well, I'll trade you. And that whole thing. If I just brought them and say, hey, look, here's a bunch of jewelry, they say, yeah, that's plastic stuff. Who wants that? But because it came in a little capsule and they had to open it. So that's the way it works. So we also have an account here. It's the cost of goods sold. It's also called a COGS. Sometimes you'll hear it COGS. because they abbreviate it. That again, you can change, but almost always it's the cost of goods sold. And then down below, we've got preferred vendor.
What is that?
It's COGS, cost of goods sold. That should come up automatically for retail.
It's like a product, and that's how they call it when it gets sold.
Oh.
So like when I buy 10 of these, 10 times 2 is 20. So if I look at my cost of goods sold, it'll say 20. My sales will be 0. Then I sell one, cost of goods sold goes down by $2, and sales product income goes up by $17.95. So see that give and take? The thing is, it's all happening all at once because I got 100 products and I got a lot of people coming and buying different stuff. And so that's where it's always tracking it. Then I run my daily report and I can see, okay, well, here's how much we spent on this and here's the income. Every sale, it goes on behind the scenes and you can see it just by running the report.
But you have the what is it? The program are we on?
QuickBooks?
QuickBooks, it's onto the cash register or?
We don't, the way we're doing this, we're not using cash registers. There, it's called POS, point of sale, and it actually looks like a computerized cash register. Our customers, by the way, we're going to know who they are. If you're at a store, like a real convenience store, when you go buy a pack of cigarettes, if anybody does that, they don't say, okay, what's your name? What's your address? Let me put it in our system. You're anonymous, right? They just do a lot of sales anonymously. So that's what a convenience store would really do. In our case, we're starting off so that we do know our customers. So that way we can work with different customers. But depending on the type of business, you may never know the names of your customers. A point of sale system is essentially a glorified computerized cash register using a version of the QuickBooks software. And then let's say you had 3 or 4 cash registers, they can tie in to this one. And you as the boss can say, all right, today's the end of the day. I'm going to run the report. Ooh, we did really well today. Good job, everybody. That kind of thing. So all this, as soon as it happens, these happen immediately. I mean, just instantaneously. In the good old days, if at the end of the day, you'd have to go in with your sales and write it in very nice writing and do the journal and put them all in there and record them. And a lot of work. So next, you've got preferred vendor. If I use the the drop-down list here and click on it, I can see all the vendors I put in. We're going to leave it blank for now, but what this is for is if you had a vendor that you like to buy this item from. It's not exclusive. You can still go somewhere else, but let's say ABC Warehouse always gives me my fountain pens. I can put it in here. Then it's a shortcut when I need to reorder them. Instead of having to remember, who do I get the pens from? The computer will remember for me. And I just click pens, and it brings up the preferred vendor. We're going to click on show more here.
You part of this program?
Actually, I don't know the person, but it is a long time in development. I mean, they went through a lot, and they keep adding things, and it's still happening. They'll say, "Oh, then we'll manage your website." You can actually take your QuickBooks file and convert it to a website. Yeah, question.
You can actually put a picture of the product too, right?
Sure. Oh yeah. Let's see.
I've seen the icon on the top.
Right here. Everybody can see what it is. Yeah. And go ahead. Yeah. Once you have all your information in, they will provide you a service for a fee and convert it into a couple of different versions, like Wix. I don't know if you've heard of that one, but then QuickBooks gets a cut of whatever you pay the company to host it. But yeah, you can take all this information and put it into a website, and boom, all of a sudden you got a website. Okay.
The website is what the customers see.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so they're only seeing what you're charging them, not what you're buying.
Right. Never tell your customers what you're paying for. All right. I'll click save and close. But remember, okay, now you were giving me a hard time about $2 versus $17.95. I gotta pay electricity. I gotta pay employees. I gotta pay me. I gotta survive too. We were talking yesterday. I gotta buy eggs. So where am I gonna get my money if I don't charge customers? Yeah, Starbucks. I gotta get my Starbucks. Yeah, there you go. So there's a lot of costs that go into it. I gotta pay taxes. Whatever I sell, I gotta pay taxes on that. I got to pay the rent and all these other things. So, you know, as much as sometimes you find out what things do wholesale for, it is expensive to bring those products to people, and that is a service.
Yeah, because yesterday when you said that to double the price, it opened my eyes that when I go purchase things, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm paying, they're charging this, actually, they bought it for this, you know, and so that now that you say what you take into account all the other little things that, you know, the electricity and all that, you know.
Yeah. The other thing you can do, I told you get those UPC codes. When you Google, you can also put the words wholesale, and then you can kind of see, you know, you don't know for sure because you don't know who's really, like Walmart has much more buying power and gets many more discounts than, you know, Joe and Mary Ann's convenience store. But you get an idea of what things do wholesale for. And then you get mad, like, boy, they're charging me they're overpriced, right? But I had a friend who did that. He sold me a computer part. And I said, you know, I looked it up. That's only cost you this. He said, I know, but who drove over here? Who found it for you? You know, and all this. So he did do all this work, and that's worth something too.
Business licenses, insurance, everything.
Yes.
Hey.
Lawyers, you might have to pay a lawyer or something goes wrong, right?
Attention, just in case.
It's a huge headache, but that headache is worth something. So
So you appreciate it a little bit more now after, you know.
Yeah.
You do.
yeah. And the heat when it gets cold, right?
Yeah.
And the air conditioner when it gets hot. I went into one store in the summer, they didn't have their AC on, just lots of fans, trying to save money. But that, yeah, it was stifling.
I don't want to be done with the electricity bill.
That's what happens. And, you know,
One to the other.
so what did I do? I tried to hurry up and get out. Well, you don't want that as a store. You want people to come for one thing and then say, well, while I'm here, that's so nice in here. I don't want to go back out in the heat. I'll look around some more and maybe up the sales. Yeah, there you go. All right, so there's my first item. Yeah.
About the market value, if it changes every time you buy a new batch. If I wanted to buy 10 more to fulfill my supply.
Mm-hmm.
And it costs a little bit more now because the demand is higher. And you want to raise your price, but I have to pay more because my vendor is charging me more. What happens then if you have
Okay.
to change your prices?
So you'll notice, here's my first item. I'm gonna click on edit. If I made a typo, I can change typos, but I can also change my cost. So let's say my vendor called me and said, you know what, sorry, I'm gonna double that. It's now $4 each. So I can go here and do that. If I've already bought some, the cost of goods sold has as many as I bought under $2, but from this point forward, now it's gonna be $4.
That's what I wanted to
Yeah. So I save and close. So, you know, that happens to them, to the stores too, is their prices go up when the manufacturer raises the price or whatever happens.
So it stays
Oh,
the
yeah.
same for the inventory you already have, but then it changes.
Correct. Yeah, it doesn't go back and say, all right, now it's $4, I'll go back and do it, because you didn't pay for those at $4. All right, with that, it is break time at 7:09, a little over again. So we'll be back at 7:19. And you can take a look at your first item. And then we're going to enter the remaining items. And then we get time, we'll start buying some. If you really get into it, it's a war, especially in grocery stores like Coca-Cola and Pepsi. You know, they talked about the cola wars, but it wasn't just that, it was going on behind the scenes. They write contracts that say, like Coke will say, we get your end caps, meaning, you know, here's the aisle. When you turn the aisle, there's stuff on the end. They like those because that's what you see when you walk up, and it's the first thing. So they will say, if you want to stock our products, to do so, you have to promise us the end caps. And in some places, they were saying you can't do Pepsi. And that's why in some restaurants, like fast food restaurants, you'll see they only have Coke or they only have Pepsi products because they're under exclusive contract for those. That's why they don't do both.
It's like the hot sauces.
Yeah.
If you go to Denny's and you only have 2 types of hot sauce, that's it. Because they probably.
Yeah, that you just think like, oh well, whoever bought it just must like the sauce.
No.
Possibly, but more likely it's because Big Hot Sauce says, if you want our hot sauce, we will give you a good deal. We are so popular, but in order to carry us, you have to do X, Y, and Z. Yeah. Yeah. Now stores, but then stores can fight back. Like if you're Denny's, do I want to lose a Denny's account over not having another rival hot sauce? Denny's can say, well, okay, that's all right. This other hot sauce won't do that. We'll go with them and see how that goes. So. There you go. Always bring some those little packets. What I do is I go to Denny's with little hot sauces and I go around to the tables and sell them. I'm kidding. That would be an entrepreneur though. Have you tried this green sauce on your eggs? It's delicious.
Yeah.
That's why I always order pico de gallo because it's fresher and it's got more of what the sauce stuff has. Because that other stuff I can taste. Yeah, vinegar and all that stuff, and it just doesn't.
When I go to,
It's supposed to be soft on
Burger
Burger
King,
King.
I know.
I like Burger King, the Whoppers, and then I just take my jalapenos and whatever.
Yeah, a lot cheaper than what they're charging, right?
Yeah, like, so- that's like, pico five de los pico jalapeno, I like.
Yeah. It's hot sauce, taquitos, the first.
I like the little bottles,
Yeah.
the ones that they sell at 99 cents, the tapatio or the Valentina, and then you just dip it in.
Sure, you're the customer. Why not?
They
I
can't,
mean, they're
they
looking at you
can't tell
like,
you nothing,
oh.
Right, right.
No, they-
Well, okay, if they wanted to be a stickler about it, you're bringing in food to their restaurant, which could be a health issue, but usually, for jalapenos, I'm not going to, because they know you're going to make you mad. Right.
Us, it's the habanero sauce.
Oh,
Like, super.
When my son was growing up, we went to a hamburger place and got hamburgers. And when I got home, we were going to eat them at home. So I went to the fridge and pulled out a slice of cheese and put it on my hamburger. What are you doing? He says, well, I wanted a cheeseburger. Well, why don't you buy it there? Do you know how much they charge for a cheeseburger? And it's so much cheaper. And besides, I like this cheese. It's sliced cheese. It's not the American cheese. I like it better. He says, but you can't do that. That's the they made it this way. This is the way you're supposed to. I said, why? Who said it? Where's the law? Yeah. And then I did the same thing with his Red Baron pizzas, because when in high school, that's what he used to eat all the time. Throw in the microwave. And then, but he loved pepperoni. So one time I made it for him. He said, where did all this pepperoni come from? I said, I added it. You like pepperoni, don't you? Yeah, but you can't just take their pizza and change it. I said, well, taste it. If you like it, why not? It doesn't hurt anything. They don't care. They're happy to sell you the pizzas. If you want to add more pepperoni, they could care less. And he said, well, that's just not right. And then I noticed after that, he always did that. He always added pepperoni to his pizzas.
My daughter would never school. You'll be hungry. And then she'll be like, that's why I'll finish your food when you make it, not school.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. I'm like, oh, you should have eaten at school, not here. I want to rest at least a day.
Well, that's the way it works. If they really object, I guess they could write me a letter and say, "Dear sir, your son has informed us you are changing our pizzas, and we don't care for that." I doubt. See, I just figure if I am them, and he's eating more pizzas, that means I have to buy more pizzas. They're happy. Whatever I do with them. Yeah. What they'll probably do is steal the idea and say, they'll call it, what do they call it now? A hack. See, everything's a hack. Hey, here's the Red Baron pizza hack. Get your own pepperoni and pepperoni palooza or whatever, and then they'll steal the idea. Yeah. Oh yeah.
I love Valentina, but it's so good. And then I have the other teachers at school. Now they're hooked on it. Sandy, when you bring Valentina, you go get your bring your bottle. I liked it.
Well, in marketing, there is a phrase like no publicity is bad publicity. I mean, there's limits to that. If you've poisoned a bunch of people, that is bad publicity. But even like little kerfuffles, like you heard about the M&Ms mascots and things. M&M's loves it. It sounds like they're, oh, those poor people, they're having to deal with all this. They love it. It's free advertising. Everybody's talking about it. A&W Root Beer came out and said, due to public pressure, we decided to put pants on our logo. The bear's name is Rudy, and they're going to put pants on because so many people complained. And then the next day they said, by the way, did we mention that's a joke? But what happened? People reacted. Who says you have to have pants? It's just a bear. It's a character. Bears don't wear. So they start all this stuff on social media. Well, and they argue back and forth, and you just got free publicity by just tweeting out something about because of public pressure. And the next day you say, oh, that was a joke. Ha ha. Well, they've always done that, though. I mean, now it's easier because it's just tweet it, right? So it just takes you a few seconds. But there's always been this drive to get people excited about their product, and for whatever reasons. Now, sometimes it's helpful. I remember SnackWells, how healthy they were. It was supposed to be against when everybody's against fat, so they're going to remove the fat. They replaced it with a bunch of sugar so to make it still taste good. But sure enough, it was low fat. So on their packages, lower fat. Get healthy. Or I don't know if they said get healthy. You have to be careful now because you can cross a line, and if they promise too much, they get in trouble. But if they say for people who want healthy, well, see, I was going to say healthier diet without fat. That's probably you skirt by on that one, because what they're not saying, of course, is what they added in when they took out the fat.
Or less sodium. That's what they put on the product.
There was when we was eating potato chips. Do you remember Olestra? Olestra was a chemical. It was a way to fry them so that the oil, you didn't absorb the oil when you ate it, so it just passed through, which means no calories. Well, not no calories, very low calories. And they came up with this product called Olean, which were chips that were fried that way. Well, when they tested it on people who just had a little pile of chips and ate them, and they thought they were good and everything was fine. But when they marketed it as, for the fat craze, try this and you won't gain weight by eating this. It's true, people didn't. But what they did is they decided, well, if it's that good, I can eat the whole bag now and not feel guilty. Well, remember I said you don't digest the fat, but it still goes through your system. It made people sick with diarrhea. And it's not because they made a mistake on the chemical. They made a mistake on people saying, hey, I can eat more. And so they ate too much. And it really messed up their system. So now you don't see those anymore. Now they're all just maybe baked.
Yeah.
But even that, for a while, they sold a lot. They used to sell out of that stuff because everybody had to have them. And then once the word got around what it did to you if you ate too many, then people didn't want them anymore. All right, so we're back to our items. Now you'll notice I have 3 items. So even though I told the computer we're doing only products and service, our products, it also shows the services up here. They come up default. So in case you ever do add hours of something you're selling, or if you do sales that aren't itemized, you can do that here. But the one I need is my fountain pen. And as I mentioned before we went to break, you can always edit this too by clicking on edit, and it brings up our screen. Now it did change 2 things. Anybody notice the screen, the edit screen, how it's different from the new screen? I'll give you a hint. It's right here. They're right here. Remember when I started, I could put the quantity on hand. Now I can't. When you go to edit, you get one shot at that. If you really needed to, there actually is a way to do it, but it's not this way. So that's supposed to be done. Same with the quantity on PO, quantity on order. It's only going to show 0 now, because since I didn't put any in as pending, now I have to use the ordering system for this number to change. So that's the only thing that changes. When you're working with this, you'll see now the button says Save and Close. I use the drop-down list. I can do Save and New. Save and Close will record any changes I've made and then close it. Save and New will record the changes and then bring up a new screen so I can enter the next one. But I'm just going to close it here. Let's take a look at our screen here. So in my item, you'll see I have a summary here. So it tells me the type, it's an inventory part. It only gives me the sales description. You can change this, by the way, but it gives me the short sales description. It cuts it off, but it does tell me my sales price, my cost, which is now $4. Also, quantity on hand. This stands for quantity on hand. Means how many do I currently have in my store, right? And this either could have been from transferring over from another system or from ordering it from my suppliers. It'll show me if I have a reorder point, and of course I don't. And it will also show me up here how many I have how many items are out of stock. It'll also show me low stock. Low stock is if you transcended those reorder points on any number of products. It'll tell you how many products are now below the reorder point. The out of stock means 0. Of course, I don't have any yet. So I have one that's out of stock. But that's okay, because we are going to fix that. But first, let's go ahead and enter. I asked you to do 5 items. So let's enter the next one. So I'm going to click on New up here. They're all going to be inventory. Just real quick, if you do click on non-inventory part, you'll see I'm missing some things. So I don't have all that inventory information like with the vendor and everything else. But that's okay. I can always go up here and change type and go back to inventory. So non-inventory parts doesn't worry about any of this, quantity on hand and everything, because we said we're not going to ask the computer to track it. So go ahead and put in your next item. So again, you need the name. Quantity on hand is 0. Today's date. You can actually leave the descriptions blank. They're not required, but they are helpful, I think, to your customers and to your vendors, just to make sure that they're getting the right description, or the right product. You're going to create a new one. If you do you have 5 items to sell? If not, just make them up. So clicked on New, and now I'm going to enter this one. This one is a desktop fan. So at my store, you can buy a desktop fan or fountain pen. Oh, one thing to remember is it does have spell check. So if you use a non-standard word that's not in this dictionary, like I tried to type in the word desktop, but I missed the K, you get a little red underline. So sometimes it is okay to have that, especially now with product names. They make these crazy product names, like instead of an S, they'll put a Z. So like Waze, instead of W-A-Y-S, it's W-A-Y-Z. Ooh, that must be something new because it's got a Z on it. For a while, it was E everything. E cigarettes, E fans, like electronic fans would be an E fan. So those don't show up in the spell check. So sometimes it's okay to leave it that way. So I'm going to use my copy and paste because I'm going to use the same description now for customers and vendors. Control C, and purchasing information, Control V. And then it shows both. Like I said, if you're using an SKU number, then you really don't need more descriptions for your vendors. They'll know. So my cost will be $4.50. My sales price will be $9. I'll leave all the other accounts the same. And now, because I'm going to do another one, at the bottom, instead of save and close and open it up again with a new click, I can just click save and new. And that'll record it. And if you can see behind the screen, shaded out, it says it has been recorded. And then I now see 2 items behind there. And I'm ready for the next one. So again, it's a shortcut. So I'm going to do another one, 0 on hand, fidget spinners. And this time it carried over the date from last time. So if I had changed this to like January 1st, it would still say January 1st to try to help me out. I can override it at any time, but in this case it was correct.
Initial quantity on hand, that's when you do the sell price? The sell price?
No, initial quantity on hand is always going to be 0 for us because we don't have anything yet. If you'd already ordered some, then you know, from let's say last week, and you already had some on your shelves, you would include them here so it can keep track of your inventory. Yeah, just 0. So like in my case, this puppy leash is called Dogco. So that's not a regular word. So of course it shows as an underline, but I'm going to leave it because that's correct. That's the name of the brand. By the way, that's another category if you want to make a lot of money. Make stuff for people's pets because people will spend money on pets like crazy. My sister-in-law will spend, she's got 3 dogs. She'll spend all kinds of money. They need sweaters. Dog needs a sweater. And they're in a heated house, but it's Christmas. So she wanted to get a Christmas sweater. And then I saw the dog. It changed clothes 2 times by the time I saw it because it had cute little sweater.
Shoes for them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Booties. Now, if you live in the snow And like sensitive pads, I can understand that. Or on, maybe even a Merced during the summer for their feet. But just to be styling. And then that's the thing. They treat them like kids. Sometimes they talk to them like kids. Exactly. They call them fur babies. And now they're pet parents. They're not owners, they're pet parents. And we have a dog, when we take her into grooming, it said all the services. So there's bath, grooming. And then it said nail polish. You can get nail polish for your dog. And then it said dogs, and it was one price, and cats, another. So I said, does anybody really come in and have their cats with nail polish? She says, sometimes. Usually for like a holiday or something. Like Halloween, they want orange or something. I said, how in the world do you put nail polish on a cat? We had a cat. That's the last thing it will let me do.
Like little diapers.
Well, speaking of Halloween, when I was in the store, they had a whole aisle of pet costumes.
Oh,
Yep. And when they're wearing them, they are cute and everything, but I was thinking, still, it's a lot of money. Yeah, for dogs. And now they have refrigerated food. That's more like people food. You can go really fancy. But good business to be in. In fact, I saw an article just for the weekend about someone's making $100,000 as a dog walker in New York because they're a premium dog walker. And of course, always sell to rich people because they have the money. So it's $45 a walk. And sometimes they have 3 dogs. And now they said with people going back to work because they're being forced to go back into the office, they bought all these pets over COVID for company, and now they have to be walked. So they're going like gangbusters. So it's a good business to be in. But what price can you put on love? Don't you really love your dog? Don't you want to have these customized? Oh, what was it? It was a rotisserie chicken. It was a dog treat. All the pieces came together, and it was in a package, and it looked like a mini rotisserie chicken, but it was all dog treats designed to look that way. And they sold out. I noticed when I went back. I was just curious. I happened to see, and they were all gone.
Their own rooms now, so they have their own like beds and
Oh yes.
furniture for them.
I just threw a towel down for the dog when it was cold. And my wife said, "No, you got to get a pet bed."
And they have like castle style beds.
Yes, right.
It's crazy. Yeah. Have better beds than us.
Okay, so I've got my 5 in here. No. So once in a while, if I haven't touched it, yeah, click, I need more time. Yeah, it's a security thing. We'll get into the settings later on. You can turn that off. But remember, you're the boss. So you have access to everything. If you go up and get a cup of coffee, somebody else can come in and say, "Oh, let's see what's going on here," and jump on your computer. So you don't want to leave it idle for too long. So there's other ways around that, but QuickBooks will do that. And like I said yesterday, just closing this window, it'll automatically do a log out for you. All right. So here are my items. You'll see the different sales prices. I'm going to go back to my reports here. So it's under Business Overview. And here are my reports.
Where did you go?
To the left, it'll say this Business Overview. In the left-hand side over there. It's a pop-up window. And then when you click on that, it gives you the short menu, which includes reports. Or in my case, it came up automatically because that's where I was before. So as you scroll down, you should find your, under customer, sales and customers, this products and services list. So I'm going to run this one. So it should be under customers. Yeah.
Sales and customers, oh, contact.
No, it's right here. See on the right-hand side of the column, you should see this product and services list.
No, right, services.
Yeah, oh, by the way, while I'm here, let's just say I couldn't find it. Here's what you can do. Yeah, find a report, and I'll say products. There it is, product services list. Now you notice I said products, plural. Oops, gotta spell it right. Once I hit the S, it doesn't match. It does have to be an exact match to the name. And then my habit, when QuickBooks started, they called these items. Well, now it doesn't work. So I catch myself, no, it's not items, it's product. There it is. Product, right. Product / service. So you do have to remember that. But the good news, well, let's go back.
And where do you press that and where do we press it after we say product service?
Once you see it, just click on the name and it should run it. So like here, you'll notice even as I started typing with letter P, it shows me all the reports with the letter P in it. R, and it limits it as I go. And the closer I get, there we go. So it's like a predictive thing. And there you go. So that's the one I want. The others are for sales. We haven't done any sales yet, so they won't show up there. I just want to take a look at the list. So that's handy, but I also found my spelling has gotten a lot worse because now I just rely on the computer to fix it for me. So when I hand write it, I'm thinking, wait, is that how it's spelled? Yeah, because I used to, you know, back in the old days where we had all this, if I made a mistake, I'd have to go back and fix it. And a little part of me said, oh, you should have been more careful. Of course, that's not spelled that way, right? So that little bit of hazing of myself or whatever it was, maybe remember next time I'm typing out eucalyptus, I know how to spell it because I got it wrong last time. Now that doesn't happen. I start typing it, the computer guesses. Usually gets it right. So here, you'll see we've got our products. It includes the descriptions, the sales price, purchase price, quantity on hand of all of them, and also the created date. So to let you know when this was entered in the system. It might be cut off. Or
I noticed that you have a date under your product service list.
Mhm.
Mine doesn't have a list. I mean, a date.
Does it show this date here?
20.
Does it say up here in the corner this year to date? Does it look like this? Wait. That?
Exactly right.
Okay. So, oh, here we go. Once in a while, you get these surveys. How do you like it? So I'm going to close that. So there's a couple of different views on the reports. So the one I was looking at was the revised one. This was the traditional one. And then once again, you can always show more. Here. So the computer does track it, whether it shows or not, it always tracks every date. Here's the other thing it does. It tracks who put it in. So behind the scenes, you can tell. So if somebody messed up, you can go after them and say, hey, you messed up on this. But that's a way they can catch people who are doing things they're not supposed to do because it's all logged in. Usually, though, it's not that big a deal, so it doesn't display it very often. And then once again, if I made a mistake, I can always click on whichever item it is, and it brings me up immediately to the edit screen. So now you can see we're filling things up. All right, so our next task is going to be, we need to buy some stuff to put on our shelves.
Once you get back to the favorite,
I just went back. I hit the back arrow to go back here to reports. I just basically closed it by hitting back. It doesn't have a close box in the upper right-hand corner. The desktop version, all the reports do. The bad news about that is I have a bad habit of opening things and not closing. So I can leave a whole bunch of stuff open and it's in the background behind my current screen. Well, what happens is if you do that too much, it can start slowing down your computer. So you do have to have a good habit of closing. On this version, the online version, it does it for you. It automatically closes. Let's go up here. In the upper right-hand corner, you should see this gear. Here is another way to get to things. I'm going to click on the gear. So at this point, you can see there's access to a lot of things. So here's our products and services. If you want, you can always go to the gear, click products and services, and it'll bring up your products and services. You don't have to use everything on the left side. Again, up to you. Unless you join a company that says, no, you must always use this button here because it's harder. That must be good. So it's, the same thing, same psychology is if it's more expensive, it must be better. If it's harder, you must be doing more work. So yeah, that's a good thing. But either way, it'll get you the same spot. So I can click on it here. And there's my products and services. So not all items and not all elements of QuickBooks are available here, but a lot of them are. And here you'll see lots of different things you could do. So the account and settings is your personal account with QuickBooks. Go ahead and click on that. Remember I said if you need to change your name, you can do it here. You came up with a better name. You can also change the tax form if you're no longer a sole proprietor, you found a partner, and things like that. Same as if you move your address and all this stuff. Down here, down below, you've got communications with Intuit, marketing preferences, which means ads. So if you click on that, here you can set what they're going to advertise to. Now, when you're starting out, it might be good to know what they do. So if you want, you can change your password. You can change your personal description and everything else. And then over here on the right-hand side, I'm going to click on Manage Subscription for a minute. This will tell you what you currently have as a license for QuickBooks. You'll notice at the top, it actually opened up a separate window. So if you can see up here. So I've still got my products and services open in my regular window, but I've also got this window here. And by clicking this little arrow, remember I said that it assigns you an ID? And if you ever have to call customer service, this is what they're going to ask you for. There's your company ID. That's Intuit's company ID, not federal or state.
Where did you go to see that?
I went to the little triangle. Let me go back. It's this light gray triangle that's really hard to see. There, it's basically more detail. See over here? So I'm here on your products. From products and billing, I went to your product. This is my name, my company. Here's what we're using. And then right here, I click more, and that gives me the details. Sure.
Because you can have up to
Yeah.
3 accounts.
This is what you got for the class. You are using QuickBooks Plus free till January 24th, 2024. Let me see. Speaking of raising prices, they change all the time. And it does depend on what you subscribe to. So I clicked on it. $70 a month.
70 a month for,
This QuickBooks Plus that you're using now.
because we have a bookkeeper, that's why I'm doing this, so. They charge $90.
There you go. Tell her she's fired. No, what you do is say, you know, I've been using QuickBooks. I think we're good with that. Unless, you know, if you could maybe work your rates better, we could work something out. And if she says, no, I can't do any more, then fine.
No, she even told me, go learn about it, and I have no problem, you know, I'd rather you learn it, you know, since, because it's a brand new business.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Well, you know, even the little side things we're going over, it's good to know those things. It's really interesting.
$20 is $20, it'll add up in a year.
And you know, for the things we're doing, it really does make a difference. We haven't added sales tax yet. We're going to do that next week. But when they had the Loma Prieta earthquake, the legislature did something they never do. They created an additional sales tax, but they put a deadline on it, an expiration date. So it was good for 1 year. And all the extra money was supposed to go to help rebuild the San Francisco Bay Area that got hit by that earthquake. So what happened is every vendor or every business in California that was doing sales and charging sales tax had to adjust their sales tax, and they had to know it. And they sent out notices, but I'm sure you've seen those notices. Like we get PG&E notices in the mail. They could send me a notice that says your gas line is about to explode right underneath you, and I'm going to think, oh, another one of these things, and I just throw it in the trash because they send so much. I don't pay attention to it. And I don't read them. Well, that's what happens is that the businesses get these notices, but they think, oh, it's something else, and don't really pay attention to it. So if you're not paying attention to the news, you might not know that. With QuickBooks, you would get it automatically updated. It would tell you and go up. And then I said, you know, they did the thing they never do. They put an expiration on it. And sure enough, just as it was about to expire, he said, okay, we did raise enough money, but you know, there's so many other things we could do. We should really keep that in place. And then they tried to have a vote on it and they couldn't get it. So it did expire. So once again, everybody in California who's charging sales tax has to go into their systems and bring it back down. And if you don't, you know, you get in trouble. So once again, QuickBooks will do that all automatically. So it's worth it. You know, before they did the online stuff, they, like I said, you could buy it on a CD, put on your computer. Well, then you never had to deal with QuickBooks again if you didn't want to. If you want to do all your stuff manually, so you're not doing it for payroll. You bought it, you own it, no monthly fees. With QuickBooks though, and by the way, you could also pirate it, which was a bad thing. People would make copies for friends. Here, try this, right? And it would work. But that might be fine for a video game or something, but, well, it's not fine, it's illegal. But for this, not only is it illegal, it's a bad idea, because that's the kind of thing you got to watch for. It's not the stuff that, okay, I know I have to do this. It's what you didn't know you had to do that all of a sudden now you got to do. So things like that, little sales tax that goes up. And then I live in Atwater, and we just raised our sales tax again. So again, now in Atwater, you got to go adjust it. Everybody else doesn't because they didn't pass it. We do. So it's one of those things. QuickBooks does keep track of all that stuff for you, even local things. So that is very handy. I'm just going to close this window. Excuse me, by clicking up here. And it'll take me back to our company information. You can also look at your subscription here, the billing and subscription. See how familiar this is. And these are all the services. Again, you've got your ID number here. Now look, they're going to have a webinar. It's probably a free webinar. February 16th, you can sign up for it and learn about the features of their business network. That's where all the people get up. They're a little bit more advanced, and they answer questions for people who have problems.
What did you say about the webinar?
Right here at the top. Did you get this? It's kind of like an ad. When I popped on billing and subscription over here on the left, it may or may not. If it doesn't today, it will tomorrow. If you click back on it, it kind of randomizes. Did you add? I closed this top window and went back to accounts and settings. So here's where you can sign up for payroll if you're going to do payroll. And speaking of bookkeepers, they actually have a cadre of bookkeepers that you can communicate with online and do this here. But again, there is a charge for that. But it's good if you ever have questions. And then it's like streaming services too. You turn it on. What you do is you compile all your questions, right? You have a long list of questions. And you say, okay, I'll subscribe to it. And then you turn it on. And then you ask all your questions. And then you turn it off. It's kind of like if you do like Paramount Plus streaming. Binge watch all the shows. And when you're done, turn it off until they have another bunch of shows later on instead of subscribing month to month. You could do the same thing here. And these are just different things they offer. On the left-hand side, you'll see usage. This tells you that you have 5 users you can put. I thought it was 3. I think I said yesterday 3, but it's 5, better deal. So 5 different accounts you can set up to have access to your company. And again, if you specialized, or even if you have a bookkeeper that you want to look at this, you can say, here's my password, or I'll actually set you up with a password, and here's access to now my company. And the chart of accounts, we'll get into that because we're going to set up bank accounts. And here's all your preferences. All the things we set up in the beginning, you can go back here. Now, some things were turned off. So like discounts, right now, we can't offer a discount to our customers. But if you turn that on, you sure can. So these are, when we told the computer what type of business we're in, this is what it did for us. And it made assumptions. It's not always right, but it's pretty good. But if it does miss something, you can always go and either turn something off or turn it on. Sometimes you'll see something like this. See where it says beta? So this is price rules. So if you have like special customers, either they're special because of the type of business they do, or they've just been with you a long time, and you want to customize the price you charge them, you can actually do it here. You can coordinate the prices and the discounts. So like a frequent flyer kind of thing, set up that, or the frequent buyer. The thing is, this is brand new. It's so new, it's not technically completely live yet. That's why you'll see beta. Anything that says beta, it's called beta testing. And whenever they come up with some new software, they test it, the programmers test it as best they can, but the programmers are programmers. They're not business owners. So they might not know certain things. So then what they'll do is they'll try to find users who agree to help test this out for them. And they're supposed to be people in the field. So then they say, okay, we have to work all the bugs out now. We forgot about some certain aspect of it. So we'll incorporate that, whatever. Then they go to beta testing. So that was alpha testing. Now beta. Beta testing means, okay, we think we've got this worked out, but just know it hasn't gone through field testing, real live field testing. So if you want to use it and try it, you can. Just keep in mind, don't rely on it too heavily because there could be bugs. There could be a mistake. We think we got them, but they're just at the point where we think we got it ready, but we need people to try it. So if you want to try it, you can turn it on and experiment with it. So once in a while, you'll see that. And that just means it's a new, I told you to keep adding to the program. It's going to be a new feature eventually. And then once people go through the beta testing and things go wrong, they'll fix them. And they'll say, okay, now we're really ready. And you won't see beta here anymore. It'll become a regular feature. By the way, they do take suggestions. So if you ever say, I wish it would do whatever, give them a call or send them an email. And pretty soon you might see a beta test on here. You don't get any money, but they'll give you credit or something. Maybe a nice letter. So down here, you'll see reminders. You can coordinate your QuickBooks with your email. So it sends out emails on your behalf, and that can be invoices. It could also be confirmation of payments and things like that. So we'll get into more of these as we go along. I'm going to go back, click the back button. And there's my products and services. So before we go, let me go back into this wheel up here. So I'm clicking on the gear and I want to go into my chart of accounts. So see under your company, it says chart of accounts. So this pops up the first time. So it tells us it already set up the chart of accounts. Well, we knew that from when we set up our company. I'm going to click on see the chart of accounts. So you can always get to that by clicking the cog up here and then chart of accounts. Or if you're using the desktop, I told you it was Control A. That's the keyboard shortcut. Oh, I got to write them a letter. I got to tell them that. Okay, sorry. All right, so here's what we did. Let me go back to, this is overview. The reports we were in. All right, so to get to the chart of accounts, I'm going to use this little wheel up here, this year. Yeah, that's kind of the nuts and bolts of things. So this brings up access to a lot of different things. Some of the tools include ordering checks. Remember I told you that's a little side business. So you could do that. If you want to import any of the lists like we're talking about, you could do it from here as well. This is the lists that they have. So like products and services, you can get to it from here. Recurring transactions, those are fun. You can set up to automatically order something every month, things like that. But we're going to use the chart of accounts. And this is the list of all the categories of anything we can earn or spend. Yes, the first time it pops up, it tells you that. So go ahead and click yeah. Click the little green button, and then won't do it again. It's I don't know, they're just introducing it, but at the same time, I think it's kind of like a warning, like, because here, if you did to make changes, it could cause some damage. Because here's where we're going to see our bank accounts. So if you put a wrong number in, it's going to mess things up. So I don't know if that's a warning, but the first time it's like, if you don't belong here, maybe just find something else. Yeah. Yeah, but we're in class, so you can't mess anything up in class. Or you can, but we'll show you how to fix it. And then this is the list as you scroll down. And you'll see it's alphabetical by type. So there's cash on hand, accounts receivables and things. You've got bank accounts, fixed assets, liabilities, equity, income. This is where I told you it's recording everything. As you start making financial transactions, it's going to be recorded on here, including payroll expenses. Here's my office supplies, the works, even meals. There's a spot for a company car. Now, you might not have a company car, so you'll never use it. But this is the standard list that any accountant would expect to see if they opened it up. If you created your own stuff from scratch, they'd have to say, okay, well, you called it truck. Oh, I think you mean vehicle. So, okay, now I know what that is. This way, any accountant anywhere would recognize this chart of accounts. Whether you use everything or not. Hopefully you never have to use bad debts. But like here's vehicles. And then at the top, you'll notice it does tell you you're using 0 of 250. So you can add accounts, but these can also include bank accounts. But I don't know anybody who has 250 bank accounts. Not individuals. I guess corporations might. If you get to that point, to 250, and you need one more, then there's a fee for it. And so that's what it's telling you here. So far, we haven't used any. But come Monday, or come tomorrow, we are going to add bank accounts. So we'll keep a couple of those. So again, that comes with the plan, but that's how it works. It's all part of the plan now. And if you do more than the offering, you have to expand the plan. If you ever want to find out where all the information for the reports come from, this is it. And you can see how long this is.
Yeah, mine only shows 32 instead of 135.
Did you do retail? Can you set it up?
No, it's the chart of accounts.
Okay. You mean over here?
135? Yeah.
It's interesting. Either way, it's going to be everything we need is going to be there. It'll be interesting though to see what they did differently.
Yeah, well, I can see like subcategories like the meals. It says meals with clients. I don't have that.
Oh,
It's
okay.
like meals and entertainment.
Yeah, actually. So let's go
But there's,
down.
like some subcategories in there.
Yes.
They're not, but
Well, remember I told you the office expenses?
yeah.
See the office supplies. So you see how these are indented? So that means these, are sub-accounts.
Yeah, they're subcategories,
Yeah.
sub-accounts for the main.
And if you ever needed one, you could add them.
Yeah.
But actually, now you bring up something interesting because remember we got a 250 limit.
Yeah.
If you were close to your limit, that might make a difference. If they would give it to you for free. I wonder if you have to check that out sometime. See, yeah, how would you say, well, I want those back because I was going to add them manually, but you're going to charge me for them. So how can I do it?
Yeah, because or upgrade to advanced. I guess to give you more.
Yes. Yeah. If you upgrade to the advanced one, you get more of that, you get more users, and it's a bunch of things. But anyway, like I said, I don't know anybody who's gotten to 250 on any of the accounts, but conceivably it's possible. But this is one of those things where you got to be a little careful because you don't want to add too many extra things because too much tells you nothing. Because if everything's separate, it's not grouped together correctly. I think I used the example of ink printer cartridges. Then, it won't give you this clear picture as it would if they're grouped together appropriately. Plus, it's a lot more work. Anyway, that is our chart of accounts. Tomorrow, we're going to get into this. We're going to add a bank account so we can buy some stuff and start selling. So that for no questions, we are done for the day. Yeah, you can just close it. Just close the window. You can sign out if you want to. I shouldn't say that. I should actually, that's probably pretty good practice to do, but I don't.
Is it your personal?
Pardon me?
Is that your personal computer? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. If you're in the library, definitely, you're using QuickBooks. And to sign out, where I have a D in the upper hand corner, oops. See, click that and then click sign out. But just closing the window, it'll automatically log out.
There's like a manual or a book, because I'm a visual person. I need to, and a touchy person that I need to have it.
Yeah, well, I can, it's PDF, but I can, I'll put it in one of the emails. You can just download it.
Okay.
And then if you want to print it, you could print it.
Okay.
But yeah,
Well, because we can write that off.
yeah, that's true.
I have to learn Great Plains, and I have to write up the whole manual.
Oh, really?
Because they never created a manual for it, and it was customized to the company. It took me 3 binders to complete it, step by step.
Well, a lot of companies now just skip the manuals and it says, click on our website. And then they watch videos and things instead. So,
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Because I noticed QuickBooks has videos that you can watch.
Oh, yes. Tons. Well, now QuickBooks does, plus some other bookkeepers do. And they will tell you all the secrets, the keys to the kingdom. And you think, wow, why are they doing this for free? Plumbers too. Plumbers will charge you a couple $100 an hour. Why are they doing it for free? If they're putting it on YouTube, they have a YouTube channel and they're probably getting paid for clicks.
Yeah.
So they are getting paid, just a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you could put down a YouTube service.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye.